Good morning, everybody. Welcome to September. Looks like it, feels like it. I'm rather enjoying it because lawns really like this kind of weather. Welcome to Turf Talk. I'm your host, Theron Peck, also known as Mr. Grass. It's easier to say than Theron sometimes. And you can reach me at turf@chippersinc.com. That's my direct email. I use email a lot, just so you know, because I'm generally on the road looking at lawns, solving problems, and trying to help folks out when I'm not doing these webinars on Thursdays. And chippersinc.com, where it's a great website. You can really look into not only the turf division and our services, but also the tree division, gardening, landscaping, all kinds of good stuff. We're here for all your green care needs. So with that, let's get right into what's going on with lawns. Well, it's Thursday, so I've had 3 days so far to look at lawns this past week. The weather is really helping out recovery. There's still more recovery that's going to happen. A lot of the lawns are still showing drought damage. Of late, I have found chinch bug damage as well as grub damage, active grubs and chinch bugs, as well as some of my coworkers. We've been finding these everywhere from Stratford, Vermont, all the way down to Concord, New Hampshire. So when you're looking at lawns and they're brown, they may also have some of these pests going on. So it's bad enough that you have drought damage, but you might also have chinch bugs and grubs, which is a trifecta for disaster. So if you've got a brown lawn, you need me to look at it, just email me directly at turf@chippersinc.com. That's a complimentary evaluation. I'm happy to help you out. Again, that's turf@chippersinc.com. So with that, we're going to get into our first slide here, and we're going to talk about aeration and overseeding and soil restoration. So the reason I'm going to talk about this is actually the aeration and overseeding. You can rent these machines yourselves. They're not the size of the machines that we use. And obviously, if you have an acre or more of lawn, pushing one, unless you've got a tractor with a pull-behind aerator, can be quite a daunting task. So I'm going to talk about aeration and overseeding. So what is it? Aeration and overseeding is a mechanical process that removes a 1-inch diameter core to a depth of approximately 1 to 3 inches. And what that does is it deposits these tines, their teeth, on an aerator, and it's a grid, and they actually pull these cores and deposit it on the surface of the lawn. And what that does is it opens the lawn up. So let's talk about the benefits of aeration. And again, you can do aeration anytime from now until the ground freezes. If you do plan on overseeding, the sooner you overseed, the better, because you get more time for not only the seed to germinate, which can take up to 3 to 4 weeks to go, but also it allows more growth before the winter. So the benefits, a lot of benefits. I'm just covering the big ones. It increases moisture and air penetration into compacted soil. It's been such a dry year. Soils are compacted, even sandy soils have been compacted, and it's just dried out. It's kind of like if you're, out in the Midwest. It just has that desert feel to it in some cases. Obviously, it allows for overseeding of the lawn, and that's really important by introducing better grass types for your lawn. So if you've had turf damage or you've got a shaded lawn area and you really haven't been able to add grass to that area, well, now's the time to get the shade seed in the shaded areas that are thin, or drought tolerant turf in those wide open sunny spaces. So that's really a great benefit of aeration and overseeding. It also aids in thatch decomposition. When you're bringing up the pieces of thatch in the soil, it's got microbes in it, and it just naturally starts to degrade. And so that's also a form of dethatching. And it also allows, again, repair of your lawn from drought and from the heat that we've had this past summer. So let's talk about the timing. Lawns can really be aerated anytime. Golf courses and sports fields are often aerated many times a year. It could be 3, 4 times, golf courses. But the important thing is that the soil moisture is there. The best time to aerate is spring and fall. But fall is definitely the optimum time because the soils are warm and you've got the cool nights. We're getting those fogs now in the morning and dew, as well as, the light rain. And so it's really advantageous for the seed that's down in the aeration holes. So you're not necessarily required to water that situation because the seed's down there, a couple of inches and it stays moist versus if you were seeding on top of the lawn, like a renovation or a lawn install or repair, you would want to irrigate for a few weeks there. So also the other benefit of not aerating in the spring is you have annual weeds that are popping up, crabgrass, spurge, there's a bunch of them. And they're basically, that's competition. So it's a race to who can germinate first. Well, at this time of the year, those plants are dying and no longer germinating, so you don't need to worry about them. And that's a big, big plus. So that's just another tip about the timing. My next topic, I want to talk about soil restoration. I put it new in parentheses here. It's basically it's a new service that we've had, and what it does is we apply this product before overseeding, and it adds organic compost, and it's a product called biochar, which is carbon, humates, and it aids and it actually adds bacteria to the soil, which helps make it healthier organically. It's really improves the root system, size, the biomass, the amount of roots, which then, of course, helps in when things get droughty. And it definitely helps with seed establishment. So when I'm out there talking to folks and we're talking about aeration and overseeding, I'm generally recommending this service. And if you wanted to have this done at your place, you could still aerate yourself and have us come in and do this soil restoration product, which is very, very helpful at this time of the year. It improves the roots. It helps with drought tolerance, cold, heat tolerance. So it's really adding to the soil that's been compacted and that may very well be sandy. The slide that you're looking at right now is actually what a core looks like. That's me actually holding a core, an aeration core. That's a really good one. That was a really moist lawn, so it pulled a full 3-inch core. Sometimes it can be a little less if it's dry, or if you've got roots or the surface is uneven, or if there's buried ledge. So remember that not all parts of your lawn are nice and loving like a devil's food cake like this lawn was, that really pulled up a nice core. On our next slide, I'm going to talk again. This is another slide that shows what aeration and overseeding looks like. You can see, if you look carefully, you can see the rows and the lines of where we aerated and overseeded, and you can just see how we're adding better grass to an existing lawn. And when we go over it, generally I go over it 3-4 times. The guys will go over the lawn to really make a lot of holes, so we make a nice grid and chew it up enough. And then we can put down the soil restoration product, and then we can overseed with the appropriate grasses. And again, grass seed selection, as I mentioned in one of my earlier webinars, is critical. Just going and getting your all-purpose grass mix isn't going to cut it. It's going to be helpful, don't get me wrong. Doing something is better than nothing. But to really have the right grass for the right location is really going to give you a step forward going into next year. And again, you've got 2 months in which to do this kind of stuff. So we're going to go to our next slide here. And this is a lawn that I visited earlier this week. If I did have a way to have people guess what this is, you probably all would be right. So this is a lawn that was damaged by not only drought, but it had active chinch bugs in it on the surface. So that's 2 strikes. And then the next slide, this is what I found when I dug into the lawn. Wonderful grubs there. So that's 3 strikes, you're out. This lawn needs to be torn up with a York rake with a tractor, and all that dead thatch removed, supplemented with a little bit of loam, and then we could seed it and aerate it for compaction and add better grasses. We actually treated this lawn that I just showed you yesterday for both the chinch bugs and the grubs. So it's not just always drought stress. And remember, the dead grass or whatever may recover. The bugs aren't going to go away. Chinch bugs will be there next spring. They're going to hibernate as adults, and the grubs will be there next spring as well. So it's a problem that doesn't go away unless you address it. So that's what I've been seeing. And if we go to our next slide, I'll actually throw in the tip of the week early because you've all been so nice of late in watching me. The fall time, you've got folks that like violets. That's great. So if you don't like violets, fall is absolutely the best time to knock back violets along with ground ivy. It is one of the most difficult to control weeds. You can use organic products. We have an organic product that you can do 1 to 4 sprays. It does a wonderful job in the fall of thinning this out. And our conventional products, you don't need as many treatments. So you've got those kinds of choices. So if violets bother you, ground ivy bothers you, fall, September and October are absolutely the best months to control and thin out that broadleaf weed. So the Q&A is open. You're welcome to ask me a question live, but I'm going to get into the questions now that were sent to me, and we'll see what we got here. So Marcy writes and says, I'm moving to Laconia from Orlando. Well, congratulations and welcome. Hope you have a safe move if you're not here already. And asking me what are the best, hardiest full sun lawn grasses for Laconia. Well, actually, for the state of New Hampshire, I'd give bluegrass the #1 spot, having the best color, the best recovery, and it's the hardiest against ice damage and cold. So bluegrass would come in at #1 spot, at least in my opinion. After that, I'd have to go into the fescues, like fine fescue, red fescue, chewing fescues, even tall fescue, in terms of hardiness. And those grasses actually that I just mentioned, especially the fine and the red, they go real nice with bluegrass. They're friends. They fit well, and they're actually sometimes they're the main components of sod lawns. So if you get the picture of the color that you can get from them, they have the deepest color, especially bluegrass. If you get into rye grass, it is probably on the bottom of the list. Even though it grows fast and it can look good, it has very poor cold tolerance, and it's susceptible to winter damage, ice damage, salt damage, traffic damage. It's again, it's an inexpensive seed, be it annual or perennial, but it's just not up there, especially in New England, for hardiness. So you want to watch your seed blends when you're putting a lawn in terms of percentages. So if you're in Laconia and you're installing a lawn, you might want to go with 70%, 60% bluegrass, maybe 10% and 10%, 20, whatever, to get to 100 with the rye and the fine fescue. So thank you that. I'm going to go with a Q&A now because someone was nice enough to type me a little something here. So let's talk. See what Anonymous has written. Should I be concerned with ticks this fall? I haven't seen many this summer. That's a very good question, and it's different from what we've been talking about. Yeah, it's been a very hot and dry year. Mosquitoes and ticks do not like that kind of weather. They dry out and die very easily, so it's probably why you haven't seen much of that this summer. Spring and the fall, when the adults are very active and looking for a blood meal, are when you want to target them. So the best time to control ticks would be the spring and the fall. So if you did have any concern or issues in the past, tick control in the October, November timeframe would be the best time to treat for ticks. So thank you for that question, Anonymous. Let's go to the next question. This is actually not one question. It's more like 6 at once. So we'll see if I can get through this. So Helen writes, I'm seeding my 5,000 square foot lawn this week. Any recommendations on the best way to do it? That's kind of an open-ended question. I don't know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about the way to do it. You could have someone come in and hydro-seed it. You could do it manually with a spreader. Or by hand with 5,000 square feet. You could get a shaker and shake the seed out. The most important part is that the lawn is prepped if you're going to be installing it from the get-go. Make sure it's all raked out and level, and don't seed into existing hard pack lawn. If this is new, don't. If it's a new lawn, that's great. If it's an existing lawn, don't just throw seed on the surface. It won't do anything. Says the soil is sandy on the site. That's very common. And most of it gets 6 hours of sun a day. So again, the seed that I just talked about earlier from Marcy's question, any seed blend that I was mentioning, the types would be appropriate for that kind of a situation. The shadier it gets, go with the fine fescues and shade blends, and the sunnier it gets, go with the rye combo with the bluegrass and fine fescue as well. My plan is to buy coated seed so I don't have to mulch it. It's flat ground. My personal preference is not to use coated seeds in terms of a mulch and or hay, but just straight up seed. You tend to get more for your money. And really the key here is being able to keep it moist. And that actually goes to your other question: at this time of the year, should I have sprinklers on? Absolutely. You're going to need to water this lawn for probably 2 to 3 weeks. In addition to natural rainfall. So obviously, if it was like yesterday, it's pretty drizzly and rainy in most of the state, New England. Really wouldn't need to do anything, but the key is to not overwater it. Try to water it in the morning of the day, not at the end of the day, and keep it moist, not soaking wet and mucky. And if you do that, you don't need to put down straw or have any mulch or anything like that. Should I have grass started at the same time? I would need a little clarification on that question. What seed should I buy? Winter mix or just a sun and shade? Again, getting back to earlier, it depends upon how much sun and shade you have. Looks like you get 6 hours of sun a day, so there must be some shade in there somewhere. So again, go with that kind of folks. And the ground is raked already and got most of the stones out. That's really good, because that becomes a real problem when you're installing and you actually have a lawn. And I go to a lot of new lawns that have been put in, and I swear they're gravel pits. I go to people and it's like, this is what your contractor gave you? And it's like, we have to start. It's like starting from ground zero with rocks in a lawn, and it makes mowing it and aerating it quite a challenge in terms of things like that. So again, the Q&A is still open. I want to answer a question. We had some technical difficulties last week. Again, apologize for that. Hopefully we're getting some better audio this time. I want to answer one of the questions last week, because actually a few folks had asked it about crabgrass. So because this year, and this is crabgrass in general, when you're talking about crabgrass, even if you had a pre-emergent, a spring crabgrass control, where lawns went dormant, or they got hot, that's where even if you had a treatment, the barrier would have degraded by August. And then you've got crabgrass seeds and other annuals start to pop up, especially in brown dormant areas along driveways, patios, anything that's hot, even along stone walls, all of that kind of stuff. And you've had crabgrass. So the key is to, again, back at the beginning of the webinar, make sure you're doing these renovations, aeration and overseeding this fall, so that you've regained your turf density. Because if you go into next spring and you've got all these dead grass areas, even if it's sprayed with a product, even twice in a year, if we did another summer like we just had, it's just going to repeat the same. You want to use drought-tolerant turf grass, tall fescues. There's a lot of varieties out there, deep-rooted, very tough grass. The lawns that I've gone on to that have survived in some areas, all you see is the tall fescue that is still green, in and amongst all the other grass that is what I call crashed. In other words, it's basically dormant and or dead. But still, don't give up. We still have a few more weeks for total recovery, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen that. Anonymous has added another question. This could be another Anonymous, or Anonymous 2. We'll see. Do I need to have my soil analyzed, or should I just assume I need lime and or potassium? Well, unfortunately, a lot of the labs are closed right now, and I can tell you just from past experience in doing this for so long that when I have done soil tests in New Hampshire and Vermont, most of the soils do come up low in pH. The turf really likes the 6.5 to 6.7, slightly acidic. And what that does, and the reason it likes that, is because of the plant that it is, and it also frees up nutrients in the soil. So the lower the pH, some of the fertilizer and the value is actually locked up, like behind a door. So when you lime, you're unlocking that door and you're releasing nutrients that are tied up in the soil, so to speak. So you're actually adding nutrition to your lawn when you lime. And of course, I've mentioned in the past that a lot of limes are different these days. They're coated with iron and humates. There's different enzyme coated on them, and there's different types of lime. So any of those are not just a pH adjuster, and I would recommend it being done once a year. If you can get a soil test, yeah, that would be great. But a general application is going to do the job just fine. And again, potassium is a highly soluble tongue twister this morning. It's a highly soluble mineral, and it goes in and it just goes away and it gets used up. So the fall is the best time to apply either a liquid or a granular potassium. And again, that's the last letter in the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, in a fertilizer bag. So something like a 0055, 0050, 0060, any of these potassium treatments, it's like giving your lawn a banana. You want to give it a little love, and the best time to do that is September and October. And it also, the reason potassium is so important is that it actually helps with drought tolerance in the following year. So that's a key component there. That's a great question. I don't have any more Q&As, and I already gave you the tip of the week. I could make up another one, but I won't, because I'd like you to come back next week. So again, I'm Theron Peck, Mr. Grass. You can email me at turf@chippersinc.com if you have any follow-up questions to some of the stuff. I gave you a lot of information there in 20-25 minutes. So if you want to follow up, I'm happy to answer you, and you're welcome to email me directly. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Have a great holiday weekend, and fix your lawn.